Our question at this time is one concerning marriage, and one has asked the question, what constitutes a scriptural marriage for Christians? Well, that's an interesting question to ask, an interesting way to word that. I might begin by saying that the same thing that's necessary for two Christians to be scripturally married is the same thing that's necessary for non-Christians to be scripturally married. Because when we think about God's plan and law for marriage, it is not just for Christians or excluding non-Christians, it's for everyone. And the scriptural marriage is to have one man and one woman for life. That's the scriptural marriage. And you look in the book of Romans chapter 7 and verses 2 and 3, and he talks about the fact that a wife is bound to her husband so long as he lives. Now, if her husband is dead, she'd be free to marry another person. But if her husband is alive and she gets divorced and gets married to somebody else, he says, then she is an adulteress. Now, you see this in Romans chapter 7. And again, you read that for yourself, Romans 7, first 3 verses. We also see this in Matthew chapter 19. And verses 4 through 6, because there some folks asked Jesus, they said, is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause or every reason? Jesus answered in verse 4 of Matthew 19 by saying, have you not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? He said, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother, shall cleave to his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. Wherefore there are no more two, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, let not man put asunder, let not man separate, is the idea. And so whenever they ask Jesus, is there a reason, can a man just divorce his wife for any cause, the answer was no. What God joined together, don't let anyone separate. And he goes on then, which is in agreement with Romans 7, he goes on in Matthew 19 verse 9 to say, that whoso putteth away his wife, except it be for the cause of fornication, and marries another, commits adultery. And whoso putteth away, or whoso marrieth the wife that's put away, doth commit adultery. And so there again, we see that when it comes to this law, it's one man and one woman for life. Whenever two people are married, see, if you've never been married before and you get married, that's a scriptural marriage. See. And in that case, you have a situation where you're to be married for life. That constitutes scriptural marriage. Another scenario could come up, like Romans chapter 7. If you were someone maybe that's never been married before, but maybe you're married wanting to marry someone who is a widow or a widower, see? And in that case, then that person who was married but their spouse is dead, could marry another, see, okay? And that would constitute a scriptural marriage. And then in Matthew 19 verse 9, what Jesus describes there, where if you have a case where two people were married and one was unfaithful, see, a sexual sin. A sexual sin there, fornication is what the word is used there, sexual immorality. And so if they were unfaithful, and then it says you can marry another. Matthew 19 verse 9, that if they would divorce, but he said marry another. And the exception of fornication. See? That's the exception. So divorce is not for just any old reason. You can't just get divorced just because they can't get along, don't like each other, whatever. That's not a scriptural divorce. But a scriptural divorce was, in the case of fornication, the one who was not guilty of that fornication could marry another. And the words marry another is in that text in Matthew 19 verse 9. And so that's what constitutes that scriptural marriage. One man and one woman for life. And that's what's shown from Genesis chapter 2, verse 18 to 25, all the way through the rest of the Bible. One man and one woman for life. And then that one exception in the case of where both spouses are still alive, one exception, the exception of fornication, and then the innocent could marry another, see, who also had the right to be married. You can't just, not everybody has the right to be married. But in that case, you'd have someone with the right to be married to them. In the case of a widow or widower, they could marry again. The Bible so describes that. But again, it's not limited to just Christians. This is the rule, God's rule, for everyone, for every person, when they want to get married.